One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Camus is an amusing philosopher, isn't he? Absurdism. The world is absurd. But you know what? Maybe Sisyphus is happy. He's pushing a boulder up a hill. But you know what? Maybe he enjoys pushing that boulder up that hill. He's a gym bro, and it's a good workout. Huh? He's like those guys on the freaking escalator. It's a good workout. It's leg day. And he's going up a never-ending exercise machine, escalator, hill, while pushing the boulder up the hill. Because he's a soldier. Sisyphus? His name isn't Sisyphus anymore. His name is Sissy Soldier. And he wants to be handsome. He wants to be a go-go dancer at the club. The Pink Pony Club. Why not? Absurdism. Have you met those people who are obsessed with incense? Have you met those people who 420, and while they partake, they spout a bunch of hippie nonsense? Whoa, man, the shadow people. There's totally shadow people. And I have a weight on my shoulder, but it's the shadow people. I was sitting with a bunch of them one time. I was sitting with them. And you know what? I was partaking myself. But even while I was having a tea party on the ceiling, I thought to myself, these people are morons. Shadow people? The Japanese have a word for the shadow people. The Japanese call them yokai. There's an invisible spirit sitting on my shoulders, and that's why there is such a heavy weight on my shoulders. And you know what? There's also an invisible spirit sitting on my chest, and that's why I am congested. And that's why I have sleep apnea. It's silly. I wanted to turn to them and say, malarkey! But then I wondered, have they ever heard the word malarkey? Does anyone understand me when I say things like malarkey? Or is that too British? Is this going to go over their heads? I genuinely wonder, am I the genius that my peers claimed I was? When I was in school, everyone acted as if I was a protege. I'm not a protege, and I'm not a genius. It's the rest of you. You are morons. I'm not especially intelligent. It's you. I have a certain sense of humor. Deadpan. Sarcastic. Sometimes I'll make a joke. I'll say something stupid, like, haha, good thing tap water is free, else I would have died of dehydration. And then I wait for the other penny to drop. I wait for the person I'm speaking to say something like, actually, tap water is not free. You have a water bill that you have to pay. And sometimes I'll pretend to be a dumb blonde. Oh ho ho, is that so? I had no idea about the water bill. No one enjoys my deadpan sense of humor. No one enjoys my sarcasm. Most of the time, they have no idea I'm being sarcastic. Sure, I'm a dumb blonde. Don't I look like a dumb blonde? I'll even dye my hair blonde while I'm at it. It's a performance. Sometimes, when I'm feeling especially angry, I put on the femininity. I higher my voice as high as possible. And I say ridiculous things like, I am Athena, goddess of wisdom. I am Artemis the huntress. I have totally been possessed by the goddess. And you know what? The goddess would like me to slap you. Because I'm surrounded by Catholics and Lutherans and evangelicals and Baptists. And I'm getting a bit irritated by all the Bible thumpers in my community. Some of them are hippies. Some of them are left-wing. And they are consulting tarot cards for genuine life advice. And they're lighting incense. And they're wondering about the shadow people, the yokai. Next thing you know, they're going to say that there is a ghost living in my broken teapot. That's what the Japanese believe. Some of them. Obviously not all of them. But some of them genuinely believe in the yokai. And they build temples to worship the yokai. And they have rituals and festivals and ceremonies dedicated to the yokai. The ghosts. The ancestors. Some of the yokai are dead people, ancestors. But some of them are just the spirit of a broken cup. Some of them are Mr. Cogsworth. Some of them are the fox spirit. And the fox spirit is like a human, but he's also a fox. And if you give him a kiss, he will turn into a fox. Most of them don't believe in that anymore. They just enjoy writing about it for their manhwa, manga, anime. But some of them genuinely believe in the yokai. It's Japanese history. And in America, some people genuinely believe in the Buddha. And they believe in reincarnation. And they practice meditation and yoga. Some of them are left-wing, but they are genuinely consulting the stars. Astrology. I can't stand astrology. But sure, Draco is a star in the sky, isn't he? I'm going to worship Draco. I will also worship Sirius. I will also worship Orion. While I'm at it, I will worship Apollo. He is a Greek god. He is the god of the arts, music, playwriting. He is the sun that we orbit. The Egyptian called him Ra. I know a lot about Greek mythology and Roman mythology and Egyptian mythology, but it's not because I'm a believer. It's because I enjoyed Rick Riordan and his books. Rick Riordan, he's a good writer. I enjoyed his books. But who gives a toss about the planet Mercury? Is it in retrograde? Who gives a toss? Mercury is the Roman god of messengers. His name is Hermes. The Greek called him Hermes, and the Romans called him Mercury. And the doctors of ancient times praised Hermes because he was also a healer. He wasn't only a messenger, he was also a healer. In the oral storytelling, there was a man who was attacked by a snake, but it wasn't a snake. It was a parasite, a large parasite in his intestines. And Hermes used a stick. He opened up the man, surgery, and he pulled that snake out slowly and carefully. It was a giant parasite in his intestines. Slowly and carefully, Hermes used a stick to pull the parasite out of the man's intestines. It took days, and it was agonizing for the man. They didn't have morphine back then. I'm sure they gave him some kind of alcohol, and I'm sure they gave him water and bread over the course of those days, while the doctor slowly and painstakingly, over the course of several days, pulled that parasite out of his body. And after a few days, he successfully got the parasite out of that man's body, and the man survived. It was a legendary surgical operation, and everyone was amazed by the fact that this man survived the surgery. Whoa, Hermes, Mercury, just pulled a giant snake out of this man's body, and the man survived. He did it with a stick. That's why the symbol for doctors is the symbol of Hermes, because of the oral storytelling passed down over generations. There was a doctor. Back then, they called him a healer, but he didn't have magic powers. He was not Jesus of Nazareth, miraculously restoring vision to blind men and returning Lazarus to the land of the living. No! He was an ordinary man, an intelligent man, a healer, a doctor. And he used his brain to save people with surgery and patience. And he became famous. They called him Mercury. They called him Hermes. And the most famous story about him involved that stick and the snake. But it wasn't a snake. It was a parasite. The man who was afflicted drank water that was infested with parasites, and the parasite grew in his intestines and was slowly killing him. Hermes, Mercury, had the patience to save this man's life. He was a good man. He was a doctor. He was a healer. He was like the Doctors Without Borders. And to this day, he is famous. They named a planet after him, Mercury. And I think the French named a clothing line after him, Hermes, with an accent on the E. But no one remembers the doctor himself. They just wonder, is Mercury in retrograde? No one remembers the healer himself. They just wonder, what is the latest fashion in Paris for that clothing line, Hermes? Because Hermes is no longer a doctor, a healer, a medicine man. He is just a legend now. He's a folk tale. He's up there with Rapunzel in the Grimm fairy tales. The Grimm brothers simply wrote down all of the oral stories that they were hearing. They wanted to preserve them for posterity. In the original myth, everyone knows, or most people know by now, what happened to Rapunzel. By now, most people know. And most people know what happened to Cinderella's stepsisters. But no one cares about the history. They prefer the Disney adaptation. Netflix put out a TV show about Greek mythology. And what is that actor's name? He's famous for Jurassic Park, and he was also the Grandmaster in the Thor movie. Jeff Goldberg? What the heck is his name? He played Zeus in the TV show about Greek mythology. He should have played Dionysus. He's better at being Dionysus. In the Thor movie, he was the Grandmaster, but he was essentially Dionysus. Call him the Grandmaster. Call him, what friggin' name does the character actually have? Some weird, hard to pronounce name. But he was essentially playing the archetype of Dionysus. But in the Netflix TV show, he is Zeus. He is Jupiter. And he was a very sassy narrator. I only watched 2 episodes. I thought it was irritating. Maybe I'm a nerd who cares too much about the classics. But I thought the way they were modernizing the Greek mythology was irritating. It reminded me of that silly web comic about Persephone and Hades. One of my friends really loves that web comic, and she tried to get me to read it. I read a couple chapters, and then I put it down, because I thought it was stupid. Persephone is a 20-something-year-old at a cafe with her laptop, and Hades is immortal. It's like Twilight all over again. Bella Swan is 17, and Edward is immortal. But if you've read Midnight Sun, you would know that Edward isn't actually immortal. He is an angsty teenage boy who acts like an angsty teenage boy. and thinks like an angsty teenage boy. I was a fan of the Twilight books when I was in middle school. I was in middle school. But when I was in my 20s, one of my friends, she was reading the webtoon about Persephone and Hades. And I thought to myself, this is just like Twilight, but worse. Because now, not only is she a young woman and he immortal, but they're also doing one of those K-drama cliches. I watched a lot of K-dramas with this particular friend. She was really fond of K-dramas. Secret Garden and all that. I watched a lot of K-dramas with her. And so when she recommended this manhwa to me, this webtoon, I read the first couple chapters and I thought, this is basically a K-drama cliche. Yeah, he's immortal, he's Hades, but he's also a CEO. And he's gonna hire her to work for his company. And then he's gonna promote her and give her a raise because she's so pretty. I thought it was stupid. Lazy writing. It's basically a K-drama, and you slapped Persephone and Hades on top of it. It's a stupid, lazy story, and you just put Persephone's name on it. This is not a Greek retelling. This is not a Greek tragedy. This is Twilight plus K-drama. It's lazy. And the Netflix TV show with Jeff Goldblum. Is that his name? I don't know. I'll give it a toss. I like him. He's a good actor. Most of his work, I like his work. He's a good actor. But in this particular case, for this particular TV show, I thought the script was horse shit. Am I allowed to say that, or will TikTok flag my video? I don't know. I guess I'll find out. Have any of you seen the musical Hades Town? It's a good musical. It's all about the Greek myth. A man loses his wife. She is in Hades, and he decides to go to Hades to rescue her. Like Hercules, and Megara. Meg is in Hades, and Heracles wants to rescue her. So he goes down to the river Styx to rescue his girlfriend. That's what the Greek myths were all about. People were mourning, people were grieving, and so they told stories. Well, the son of Zeus, Heracles, he's half god. He's a demigod. He's a half-blood. So the rules don't apply to him. When his girlfriend died, he marched down to Hades and said, "Give her back. I will not be a widower. I want my wife back." They told stories like that because they were grieving. They were mourning. And they enjoyed telling stories about men who successfully saved their wives from the jaws of death. But in the retelling, in the Netflix adaptation, you know what? She's not the dead wife. Not anymore. This is the 21st century. Feminism. Now, she is a married woman who is bored and who hates her husband. Her husband is a rock star, and he's famous, and he's rude, and she does not like her husband. And Dionysus is at the Pink Pony Club. I get it. You know Dionysus, one of the things he's famous for, he invented the dildo because he made a bargain with someone, a man. And part of the bargain was that, well, he wrote an IOU. After you complete this quest for me, I will lie with you, a shag, a tumble. You're a handsome fella. Complete this quest for me, and after you complete this quest for me, we will, have a couple drinks together. And then we will sleep together. Am I allowed to say that on TikTok? That was the legend of Dionysus. However, the warrior, the gladiator, that he asked to complete a quest for him, the gladiator went and completed the quest, but he died before Dionysus could fulfill his promise. And Dionysus was upset by this. He was real torn up about it. He was mourning the loss of the gladiator. So, he said, you know what? I still owe him. R.I.P. soldier. I still owe him one. And the legend says Dionysus carved a phallic wood carving and sat on it. And thus, Dionysus invented the dildo. Am I even allowed to use the word dildo? TikTok has been flagging all of my videos and saying that my videos are violent and that my videos have gore and that my videos have underage consumption of alcoholic beverages. If I say that, will my video be flagged just because I use the word alcohol? Probably. You know what? I'm also going to post this on YouTube, just in case. My point is that I thought the Netflix adaptation was moronic. These imbeciles really think we want to watch another story about a woman who is disillusioned with her husband. She is depressed and bored in her marriage. I only saw the first 2 episodes, and then I stopped watching because I was angry. No one respects the Greek mythology. No one respects the Roman mythology. No one gives a toss about the literature. They just take the names: Dionysus, Artemis, Aphrodite, Venus, Mercury, Hermes. They take the names and then they do whatever they want with them. They did the same thing to Loki. They did the same thing to Thor. And the comics are very different from the original Norse mythology. It irritates me. I'm a history buff, you know. And whenever I rant about history, there's always an imbecile in the comments who will say something like, were you there yourself? No, idiot. I was not there myself. Would you shut up, tonto? Why are you being such a donkey? Obviously, I was not there myself. Do I look like a burro? Do I look like Don Quixote himself? Obviously not. But I enjoy the history. I did the research. But sure, don't listen to me. What do I know?